The morning alarm echoed through the dormitory halls of Station Omega-7 with a sound that could wake the dead from 17 different species. Alex rolled out of his narrow bunk and rubbed his eyes, still adjusting to the artificial gravity that felt slightly heavier than Earth standard. 3 months into his training at the Galactic Security Academy, and he still felt like the odd one out. Down the corridor, his roommate Quinn was already awake, as always. The Zentari never seemed to sleep in the human sense. Instead, Quinn would enter what he called a rest calculation state, where his brain would continue processing mathematical problems while his body recharged. Alex had grown used to the soft clicking sounds that came from Quinn's breathing apparatus during these periods. "Another day of impossible challenges awaits us," Quinn said in his precise, translated voice. The universal translator made everyone sound slightly formal, but Quinn actually spoke that way naturally. His species valued accuracy above all else. Alex grabbed his academy uniform from the sanitizer unit. The fabric felt strange against his skin, designed to accommodate dozens of different alien physiologies. "At least today we get to see what Commander Thex has been building up to all semester." The dining hall buzzed with nervous energy from students representing 12 different civilizations. Alex grabbed a nutrition pack labeled Human Compatible and found a seat near the observation windows. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly in all directions, with the occasional transport ship docking at the station's massive ports. At a nearby table, 3 students from the Axiom Collective sat in perfect silence, their crystalline bodies pulsing with soft light as they communicated through harmonic frequencies. Alex had tried to make friends with them early in the semester, but their method of communication was literally beyond human hearing range. "Hey, Alex!" called a voice from across the room. Nira waved from the table where the other humanoid species gathered. She was from Kepler 186f, one of the few worlds that had produced life similar enough to Earth that humans and her people could actually have normal conversations. Her skin had a slight blue tint, and her eyes were larger than human. Normal, but she was probably Alex's closest friend at the academy. Alex picked up his tray and joined her table. "Ready for whatever Thex throws at us today?" "Nobody's ready for Thex," laughed Bren, a stocky student whose homeworld had heavy gravity. His people were known for their engineering skills and stubborn persistence. "Remember last week when he had us try to disable that Helix sound lock? Took me 3 days just to understand how sound could be used as a physical barrier." Nira nodded. "My people have perfect pitch, and I still couldn't solve that one. But Alex here just hummed along with it until it opened up." Alex shrugged. It sounded lonely, like it wanted someone to sing with it. The other students at the table stared at him with that familiar mixture of confusion and amusement that Alex had grown used to. His explanations for solving problems rarely made sense to anyone else, including himself most of the time. "That's exactly what I mean," Bren said. "You don't solve problems like the rest of us. You just do things, and somehow they work." The conversation was interrupted by the Academy's announcement system. "All advanced security students report to Laboratory 7. Final assessment begins in 15 minutes. The nervous energy in the dining hall spiked immediately. This was what they had all been training for. The final assessment would determine who graduated to become security specialists for their respective governments and who would need to find other career paths. Laboratory 7 was larger than the usual classroom spaces, with high ceilings and specialized equipment arranged around the room. But everyone's attention focused immediately on the single device sitting on the central table under a spotlight. It looked like a cube made of flowing metal, about the size of a human head. Colors shifted across its surface in complex patterns, and the air around it seemed to shimmer with energy. Even from across the room, Alex could feel a strange tingling sensation, as if the device was actively scanning everyone present. Commander Thex entered the room with his usual commanding presence. The Valorian stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. His reputation for impossible challenges was known throughout the academy. "Students," Thex began, his voice carrying easily through the room without amplification. "What you see before you is the culmination of 50 years of work by the Axiom Collective's greatest minds. This is a temporal cascade lock, the most secure device ever created." The 3 Axiom students in the room pulsed brighter, clearly proud of their species' achievement, Thex continued. "The lock operates on 17 different dimensional layers simultaneously. Its security protocols shift every nanosecond based on cosmic radiation patterns detected by sensors throughout this solar system. The quantum entanglement matrices require knowledge of mathematics that most species haven't even discovered yet." Alex raised his hand. "What's it protecting?" In practical application, devices like this secure the most sensitive information in the galaxy. Government secrets, military codes, scientific discoveries that could change the balance of power between civilizations. Thex paused for effect. "For this exercise, it contains your final grades." A few nervous laughs echoed through the room. "The rules are simple," Thex announced. "You have the remainder of the semester to attempt to open this lock. You may work individually or in teams. You may use any resources available in the Academy library or laboratories. The student or team that comes closest to success will receive highest honors." Quinn raised one of his thin arms. "Commander, what is the current record for attempts on this type of device?" An excellent question. The previous best attempt was achieved by a team of 5 Zentari graduate students. They spent 6 months and managed to penetrate 3 of the 17 security layers. The lock itself has never been opened by anyone other than its original creators. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just a difficult challenge, it was apparently an impossible one. "You have until the end of next week," Thex said. "Begin." The students immediately began forming teams and discussing approaches. The Zentari students started pulling out mathematical computation devices. The Axiom students began harmonizing to share information at frequencies beyond normal hearing. The engineering students headed for the tool lockers. Alex walked up to the lock and stared at it. The metal surface flowed like liquid, but he could see there was a pattern to the movement. Colors shifted across it in waves, but again, there was definitely a rhythm to the changes. He could hear a very faint humming sound, almost below the range of human hearing. After exactly 17 seconds, Alex reached out and touched a specific spot on the surface. The lock opened with a soft click. The silence in Laboratory 7 stretched for what felt like hours, though it was probably only 30 seconds. Every student, every piece of advanced equipment, every sensor in the room seemed to be holding its breath. The temporal cascade lock sat open on the central table, its flowing metal surface now still and dim. Commander Thex stood frozen, his 4 arms hanging at his sides in a way that Alex had never seen before. The Valorian's stone-like features were difficult to read under normal circumstances, but right now he looked like someone had just told him that gravity had stopped working. "That is not possible," said one of the Axiom students, their crystalline, body flashing red in what Alex had learned was their equivalent of shouting. "The quantum matrices alone require 17 different encryption keys, each generated by separate dimensional calculations." Alex looked around the room at the staring faces. Did I do something wrong? You said to open the lock." Quinn's breathing. Apparatus was clicking faster than Alex had ever heard it, which usually meant the Zentari was processing information at maximum speed. "Alex, my friend, do you understand what you have just accomplished?" "I opened a box," Alex said, genuinely confused by everyone's reaction. Bren laughed, but it was the kind of laugh people make when they don't know whether to be amazed or terrified. "Alex, that box is supposed to be impossible to open. The math alone should have taken months to figure out." Commander Thex finally moved, walking slowly toward the open lock. He pulled out a handheld scanner and began running it over the device. The scanner's readings made soft beeping sounds as it analyzed the lock's current state. All 17 security layers have been bypassed, Thex said, his voice carrying a tone Alex had never heard from the instructor before. Every quantum signature has been matched perfectly. Every temporal cascade has been synchronized exactly. He looked up at Alex. How? Alex scratched his head, trying to think of how to explain something he didn't fully understand himself. Well, I watched it for a while, and I noticed it had patterns. The colors change in sequence, but they repeat every few seconds. The humming sound gets higher and lower in a rhythm, and the way the surface moves, it's like it's breathing. Breathing? Asked Nira, who had moved closer to get a better look at the open lock. Yeah, like it's alive somehow. So I figured if it's alive, maybe it gets lonely sitting here by itself. I touched the spot that seemed like it was trying to reach out. The Axiom student who had spoken before began pulsing rapidly through different colors. That makes no logical sense. The device operates on mathematical principles, not emotional responses. But it worked, Alex said simply. Commander Thex set down his scanner and activated the room's recording system. Computer, replay the last 5 minutes of laboratory activity, focusing on the human student's interaction with the temporal cascade lock. A holographic display appeared above the central table, showing Alex's approach to the lock from multiple angles. Everyone watched as the replay showed Alex staring at the device for 17 seconds, then reaching out to touch a specific point on its surface. Computer, analyze the student's actions. What was the sequence of the lock's opening? Analysis. Complete. The computer responded in its neutral voice. The human student identified a recursive loop in the lock's quantum verification system. At the moment of interface, all 17 security layers were simultaneously requesting verification from each other, creating a temporary master access state that lasted for 0.3 seconds. The room erupted in voices as students began talking over each other. The Zentari students were clicking rapidly, sharing calculations at high speed. The engineering students were pulling out measurement devices, trying to understand what the computer had just explained. Alex found himself at the center of attention in a way that made him uncomfortable. Look, I don't really understand all the technical stuff. I just saw a pattern and tried something. But how did you see the pattern? Quinn asked, his translator making his excitement sound almost musical. Our mathematical analysis showed that the lock's changes were completely random, based on cosmic radiation that cannot be predicted. They weren't random, Alex said. I mean, maybe the input was random, but the lock was trying to make sense of it. Like when you hear a song on a radio with bad reception. The static is random, but you can still hear the melody underneath. Commander Thex was studying his scanner. Readings again. Computer, run a full diagnostic on the temporal cascade lock. I want to know if it has been damaged or compromised in any way. Diagnostic complete. The lock is functioning exactly as designed. No damage detected. No unauthorized modifications. Detected. The opening sequence used by the human student represents a valid solution path that was not anticipated by the original designers. One of the engineering students, a being whose species Alex had never learned to pronounce, raised what might have been a hand. Commander, if the human solution is valid, does that mean the lock was never truly secure? Thex considered this question for a long moment. Computer, how many other beings in our database would be capable of recognizing the pattern that the human student identified? Analyzing. Based on known cognitive patterns of catalog species, the probability of pattern recognition at this level is less than 0.01% for all species except humans. Humans show a 43% probability of recognizing non-obvious patterns in complex systems. 43%? Nira asked. You're saying that almost half of all humans could have done what Alex just did? That is incorrect, the computer replied. 43% of humans show the capability for this type of pattern recognition. However, the specific solution path chosen by this human student required intuitive leaps that cannot be calculated as probabilities. Alex was beginning to feel like he was in some kind of weird dream. Can someone explain what this means in normal language? Commander Thex closed his scanner and looked directly at Alex. It means, human Alex, that your species may represent the greatest security threat the galaxy has ever encountered. That doesn't sound good, Alex said. Or, Thex continued, the greatest security opportunity. Bren was studying the open lock with professional interest. Commander, what happens now? Do we continue with the exercise? The exercise is complete, Thex announced, and I need to make some urgent communications to the Academy Board. As the other students began filing out of the laboratory, many of them stopping to stare at the open lock or at Alex, Quinn approached his human roommate. My friend, the Zentari said, I believe your life is about to become very complicated. Alex looked at the lock, still sitting open on the table, its metal surface now completely still and dark. I just wanted to pass the class. Oh, you have definitely passed, Quinn said. The question now is whether the galaxy is ready for humans to graduate. That evening, Alex sat in his dorm room trying to study for other classes, but he couldn't concentrate. Through the thin walls, he could hear urgent conversations in a dozen different languages, all seeming to be about what had happened in Laboratory 7. His communication device chimed with an incoming message from his family back on Earth. They were asking about his studies, wondering if he was making friends, hoping he was eating well. Normal family questions that seemed completely surreal after the day's events. Alex looked out his window at the stars and wondered if he had just changed everything, or if everything had been waiting to change all along. The lock had been lonely. It had wanted to be opened, and somehow, being human meant he could hear what it was trying to say. He had a feeling that tomorrow was going to be even more interesting than today. Alex woke up to find 3 security officers standing in his dorm room. Not Academy security. These were the real thing, wearing the black uniforms of Galactic intelligence. Their species were unfamiliar to him, but their serious expressions translated perfectly across any language barrier. Human Alex, said the tallest officer, whose voice came through a mechanical translator, you will come with us for questioning. Quinn sat up in his bunk, his breathing apparatus making rapid clicking sounds. On what authority? This student has violated no Academy regulations. New regulations? Replied the second officer, holding up an official-looking device that projected legal text in multiple languages. Any being capable of bypassing Axiom collective security protocols must be evaluated for potential threat assessment. Alex rubbed his eyes and tried to process what was happening. I'm not a threat to anyone. I just opened a training device. That training device, said the third officer, was considered mathematically impossible to bypass. Your success has triggered security alerts across 17 different civilizations. The walk through the Academy corridors felt like the longest journey of Alex's life. Other students pressed against the walls to watch as he passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to fear. Word had apparently spread quickly through the station's gossip networks. The security office was located in a section of Station Omega 7 that Alex had never seen before. The walls here were thicker. The lighting was harsh white instead of the warm tones used in the Academy areas, and every door required multiple authorization scans to open. They led him into a room that was clearly designed for interrogation. A single chair sat in the center under bright lights, surrounded by recording equipment and analysis devices. Alex had seen similar rooms in movies back on Earth, but experiencing it in real life was much more intimidating. Sit, commanded the tall officer. Alex sat down and immediately felt the chair begin scanning him. Lights played across his skin, and he could hear the soft humming of various detection devices. Whatever they were looking for, they apparently didn't find it, because the scanning stopped after a few minutes. Commander Thex entered the room, followed by someone Alex didn't recognize. A being whose crystalline body marked her as Axiom Collective, but who was much larger and more elaborate than the students Alex had met. Her surface patterns were incredibly complex, shifting through mathematical formulas that hurt to look at directly. "This is Dr. Kale," Thex announced. "She is the lead designer of the Temporal Cascade Lock." Dr. Kale's harmonic voice filled the room with sounds that the translator struggled to convert into human language. "You will explain your method for bypassing my creation." Alex tried to think of how to put his thought process into words. I watched it for a few seconds and noticed it had patterns. The patterns seemed like they were trying to communicate something, so I responded. "Elaborate on patterns," Dr. Kale demanded. "Well, the colors moved in sequences, but they weren't random. They repeated, but with small variations each time, like they were asking a question. And the surface flow looked like it was reaching toward whoever was watching it. Plus, there was the humming." "What humming?" asked one of the security officers. Alex looked around the room, surprised by the question. "You can't hear it? It's very faint, but it's definitely there. Like a machine that's working too hard and wants someone to notice." Dr. Kale pulsed bright white, which Alex had learned meant intense focus. "There is no audible component to the lock's operation. Its functions are entirely mathematical and electromagnetic. Maybe not designed to be audible," Alex said, "but it's definitely making noise. Not loud noise, but emotional noise, I guess." The crystalline being began shifting through colors rapidly, which Alex was pretty sure meant she was either very excited or very angry. "Emotions are not part of mathematical security systems." "But they're part of the beings who build mathematical security systems," Alex replied. "And if you spend 50 years building something, some of your personality gets built into it too." "Commander," Thex activated a recording device. "Human Alex, I want you to describe exactly what you observed when you approached the lock yesterday." Alex closed his eyes and tried to remember. "The first thing I noticed was that it seemed lonely. I know that sounds weird, but it was sitting there working really hard to be secure, but no one was trying to interact with it in a friendly way. Everyone was treating it like an enemy to be defeated instead of a puzzle that wanted to be solved." "Continue," Thex said. "So I watched how it behaved when it thought no one was paying attention to it personally. Not studying it or analyzing it, just watching it be itself. And I realized it was cycling through 17 different states, but it was spending longer on some states than others." Dr. Kale interrupted. "The temporal cascades are precisely timed. There should be no variation in duration." "There wasn't variation in the cascade timing," Alex explained, "but there was variation in how long it took to verify each cascade. Some layers were more confident than others. The confident ones moved quickly, but a few layers seemed unsure, like they were double-checking themselves." "That is impossible," Dr. Kale stated firmly. "Mathematical processes do not experience uncertainty." "Maybe not uncertainty exactly," Alex said, "but some calculations were taking longer than others. And when I watched which calculations were slow, I realized they were all related to the same mathematical constant, pi, but truncated at a specific decimal point." One of the security officers leaned forward. "How do you know about pi truncation in axiom mathematics?" "I don't," Alex admitted. "But I recognize the pattern that shows up when any system tries to use an infinite number but has to stop somewhere. It's like trying to sing a song that never ends. Eventually, you have to decide where to take a breath." Dr. Kale was now cycling, through colors so rapidly that it was making Alex dizzy. "You identified a recursive loop in the verification system." "I identified a moment when the lock was asking itself the same question 17 times and getting 17 slightly different answers. So I touched it during the moment when it was most confused and basically said, 'Hey, I believe you're secure. You can stop worrying now.'" The room fell silent except for the humming of recording equipment and the soft, harmonic sounds of Dr. Kale's rapid thinking. Finally, Commander Thex spoke. "Computer, Analyze the human's explanation against our technical understanding of the lock's function. Is his description accurate? Analysis complete. The human's description is technically accurate, though expressed in non-mathematical terms. The lock does experience recursive verification loops during cascade transitions. These loops create temporary windows of reduced security that last for 0.3 seconds every 47.2 seconds. Dr. Kale's colors suddenly went very dim. But those windows should only be detectable through advanced quantum analysis equipment. The human detected them through direct observation, the computer replied. That's biologically impossible, said one of the security officers. Alex shrugged. Maybe impossible for your biology. But humans evolved to hunt animals that were trying to hide from us, and to avoid predators that were trying to hunt us. We got really good at noticing when something was pretending to be safe but was actually vulnerable, or when something was acting confident but was actually scared. You treated my security system like a frightened animal, Dr. Kale said. More like an overworked employee who needed someone to tell them they were doing a good job, Alex corrected. It was working really hard to be secure, but it was stressed about whether it was doing everything perfectly. I just let it know that it was okay to relax for a moment. Commander Thex deactivated the recording device. Dr. Kale, I believe we need to run some additional tests. The Axiom scientist pulsed. Agreement. Yes. I want to see if this was a lucky accident or if this human can consistently bypass our security systems. Alex had a sinking feeling that his life had just gotten much more complicated. What kind of additional tests? He asked. Dr. Kale's harmonic voice took on what Alex could only describe as a musical tone of anticipation. I have 17 other security devices in my laboratory. If you can bypass those as well, we will need to completely reconsider our understanding of galactic security. Alex looked around the room at the various beings staring at him with intense interest. And if I can't bypass them, then we will. Know that yesterday was an extraordinary coincidence, Commander Thex said. Either way, the galaxy needs to know the truth about human capabilities. As they led him toward Dr. Kale's laboratory, Alex couldn't help but wonder if he was about to become famous or about to start an interstellar incident, possibly both. Dr. Kale's laboratory looked like something from a science fiction movie that had an unlimited budget. The room was 3 times larger than any classroom Alex had seen at the academy, with walls that curved upward into a dome-shaped ceiling covered in star charts and mathematical equations. Floating workstations moved through the air carrying various devices, while holographic displays showed complex calculations in languages Alex couldn't read. Welcome to my life's work, Dr. Kale announced, her crystalline body reflecting the colored lights from dozens of different security devices arranged throughout the laboratory. Each of these represents years of development by the finest minds in the Axiom Collective. Alex counted at least 20 different devices, ranging from small, cube-shaped objects to elaborate constructions that looked more like art installations than security systems. Some hummed with energy, others pulsed with light, and a few seemed to bend the air around them in ways that made his eyes water. We will start with something simple, Dr. Kale said, gesturing toward a device that looked like a metallic flower with 7 petals. This is a bio-authentication lock designed for the Helix Council. It requires the correct biological signature, including DNA markers, pheromone patterns, and electromagnetic field matching. Commander Thex activated his recording equipment while several Academy scientists took positions around the laboratory with various monitoring devices. The lock is keyed specifically to Helix physiology, he explained to Alex. No other species should be able to activate it. Alex approached the flower-like device and crouched down to examine it more closely. The petals were moving slightly, opening and closing in a slow rhythm. When he held his hand near it, the petals turned toward him like they were following his movement. It's trying to taste me, Alex said. Explain, Dr. Kale demanded. The petals are sampling the air around. My hand. It's looking for specific chemicals, but it's also curious about what I am. It's never encountered a human before, so it's trying to figure out what category to put me in. Alex pulled a small bottle of hand soap from his academy kit and squeezed a tiny drop onto his palm. Then he added a drop of the mineral oil that students use to maintain their equipment. Finally, he rubbed his hands together and held them near the flower again. The petals immediately opened wide, and the device unlocked with a soft chime. "What did you just do?" asked one of the Academy scientists. "Helix biology is silicon-based, right? So their natural pheromones would include silicon compounds. The soap has silicon-based surfactants, and the oil has mineral elements that would be present in their skin oils. I just gave it a close enough chemical signature that it decided I was probably Helix." Dr. Kale was pulsing rapidly through different colors. "But you shouldn't know the specific compounds that comprise Helix pheromones." "I don't," Alex admitted, "but I know what the lock was looking for. It was sampling and comparing, so I watched what it reacted to and gave it more of that." "Next test," Dr. Kale announced, clearly not happy with how easily Alex had solved the first challenge. The next device looked like a sphere made of flowing water, suspended in the air without any visible support. When Alex approached it, the water began forming complex three-dimensional shapes that shifted and changed every few seconds. "This is a quantum mathematics lock," Dr. Kale explained. "It requires the operator to solve equations in 11-dimensional space using pure mathematical intuition. The shapes represent mathematical concepts that exist beyond normal three-dimensional thinking." Alex stared at the flowing water shapes for about 30 seconds. "It's asking me to complete the pattern." "What pattern?" Commander Thex asked. "The shapes look random, but they're actually showing me a sequence. Like, if you could see music instead of hearing it, this is what a symphony would look like. It's showing me the mathematical relationship between different dimensions, but it's missing the final movement." Alex reached out and touched the water sphere. As his finger made contact, the water began flowing around his hand, and he started moving his finger through the sphere in a complex three-dimensional pattern. The water followed his movement, forming shapes that became increasingly elaborate. After about 2 minutes of this strange dance between Alex and the water sphere, the device suddenly solidified into a clear crystal and unlocked. "Impossible," Dr. Kale stated. "The mathematics required for that solution should take years to learn." "I didn't learn the mathematics," Alex said. "I listened to what the math was trying to tell me. Mathematics isn't just numbers. It's patterns and relationships and stories about how things connect to each other." The Academy scientists were frantically taking readings and comparing notes. Alex could hear them using words like unprecedented and impossible quite a lot. Dr. Kale led him to the third device, which looked like a twisted metal sculpture that seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. Looking at it directly made Alex's head hurt. "This lock requires the operator to think in the same cognitive pattern as its creator," Dr. Kale announced. "It reads brainwave patterns and compares them to the stored pattern of the axiom engineer who built it. Unless your neural activity matches exactly, it cannot be opened." Alex studied the twisted sculpture, trying not to look at it directly, since it made him dizzy. "So I need to think like whoever built this?" "Precisely. An impossible task, since you have never met the creator, and your species' brain structure is completely different from ours." Alex sat down on the floor in front of the device and closed his eyes. "Tell me about the person who built this." "Why?" Dr. Kale asked. "Because if I need to think like them, I need to understand what their thoughts feel like." Dr. Kale paused for a moment, then began speaking in her harmonic voice. "Engineer Zeph was brilliant but methodical. They spent 40 years perfecting crystalline mathematics. They preferred working alone, but they were deeply concerned with the security of our people. They believed that perfect logic could solve any problem. Alex nodded, keeping his eyes closed. Okay. So Zeph was smart, careful, protective, and believed in logical solutions. Correct. Alex opened his eyes and looked at the twisted sculpture again. Instead of trying to see it as a physical object, he tried to imagine what it would feel like to be someone who thought in perfect logic, who spent decades working alone on mathematical problems, who wanted to protect people by creating something that couldn't be broken. Suddenly, the sculpture didn't look twisted anymore. It looked like a beautiful mathematical proof expressed in 3 dimensions. Alex could see the logical flow from one part to the next, the careful way each element built upon the previous one, the elegant solution that tied everything together. He reached out and touched a specific point on the sculpture, the place where Zeph's logic had been most careful, most protective. The device unlocked immediately. Dr. Kale went completely dark for several seconds, which Alex had learned meant she was thinking so hard that all her other functions shut down. "You understood Zeph's mind," she finally said. "I understood what?" "It feels like to care about something so much that you spend your whole life trying to protect it," Alex replied. "Humans do that too. We just do it differently." Commander Thex was reviewing the readings from his monitoring equipment. "Dr. Kale, I think we need to contact the Council of Species immediately." "Why?" Alex asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Dr. Kale's harmonic voice took on a tone that Alex could only describe as worried. "Because if one human can bypass our 3 most secure systems in less than an hour using nothing but intuition and basic materials, then our understanding of galactic security is fundamentally flawed." "But I'm just one person," Alex protested, "and I got lucky." "Computer," Commander Thex said, "analyze the probability that these 3 successes were due to random chance." Analysis complete. The probability of random success on all 3 devices is less than 1 in 47 billion. These results indicate systematic capability rather than chance. Alex looked around the laboratory at all the remaining security devices. "So what happens now?" Dr. Kale began pulsing through colors in a pattern Alex had never seen before. "Now we find out whether your species represents the greatest threat the galaxy has ever faced or its greatest opportunity for advancement." "Can it be both?" Alex asked. The silence that followed his question was probably answer enough. Outside the laboratory windows, Alex could see transport ships arriving at Station Omega 7, more than he had ever seen before, bearing the insignia of different galactic governments. Word was apparently spreading quickly about what had happened. Alex had a growing suspicion that his simple desire to pass his academy classes had accidentally started something much bigger than anyone had expected, and they still had 14 more security devices to test. The Grand Assembly Hall of Station Omega 7 had never hosted so many different species at once. Alex stood on a platform in the center of the vast room, surrounded by representatives from 43 different civilizations, all of whom had arrived in the past week to witness what the news networks were calling the human problem. Above him, holographic displays showed footage of his successes with Dr. Kale's security devices. In the end, he had managed to bypass 11 of the 17 systems, failed completely on 4, and accidentally destroyed 2 by trying approaches that nobody had expected. The destroyed devices had simply stopped working when Alex treated them like they needed encouragement rather than solutions. "The question before this assembly," announced Delegate Prime, the rotating leader of the Council of Species, "is whether humanity represents a security threat that must be contained or a resource that should be cultivated." Alex had been listening to debates about his species for 3 days now, and he was getting tired of being talked about like he wasn't in the room. Representatives argued in dozens of languages. Their words filtered through universal translators that made everything sound formal and cold. "The human demonstrates capabilities that render our most advanced security systems obsolete," declared Ambassador Vorth of the Zentari Empire, his breathing apparatus clicking with agitation. If one barely trained individual can accomplish this, what could a team of trained human specialists achieve? Exactly our point, responded Counselor Vex from the Helix Dominion, her crystalline voice resonating through harmonic frequencies that made the translator work overtime. These capabilities could revolutionize galactic security. Instead of fearing human intuition, we should be learning from it. Dr. Kale rose from her position among the Axiom collective delegation. May I present our findings to the Assembly? Delegate Prime gestured approval, and the holographic displays changed to show technical analysis data that Alex couldn't begin to understand. Our testing confirms that the human Alex possesses cognitive abilities that are fundamentally different from all cataloged species, Dr. Kale announced. Where we think systematically, humans think intuitively. Where we solve problems through logical analysis, humans solve them through pattern recognition and emotional response. Emotional response has no place in security systems, interrupted General Corax of the military coalition, his mechanical voice carrying disapproval across multiple frequency ranges. That assumption, Dr. Kale continued, appears to be our greatest weakness. Every security system we build reflects the logical thought patterns of its creators. We design defenses against beings who think like us, but humans don't think like us. Alex raised his hand, which caused a ripple of surprised murmurs through the assembly. Students weren't usually allowed to speak during formal council sessions. With respect, Alex said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the intimidating audience, I think you're all missing the point. The hall fell silent. 43 different species focused their attention on one human standing alone on a platform. You keep talking about human capabilities like we're some kind of supernatural force, Alex continued. But we're not. We're just different. On Earth, we evolved alongside thousands of other species, all trying to survive in the same environment. We learned to read the intentions of animals that couldn't speak our language, to predict the behavior of systems we didn't fully understand, and to find solutions using whatever materials we had available. Ambassador Vorth leaned forward. And this makes you superior to species with millions of years of technological development? No, Alex said firmly. It makes us complementary. You build security systems that are logically perfect, but logic isn't the only way to approach problems. We build solutions that are intuitive and adaptive, but intuition isn't always right either. Together, we could create security that accounts for both logical attacks and intuitive ones. Counselor Vex's harmonic voice took on a thoughtful tone. You suggest cooperation rather than competition. I suggest that maybe the reason your security systems are vulnerable to humans is the same reason human security would be vulnerable to you, Alex replied. We all have blind spots. The difference is, we evolved to notice when other beings have different kinds of intelligence than us, because on Earth, underestimating other species got you eaten. Dr. Kale pulsed bright white. Fascinating. You're suggesting that human evolution, specifically selected for the ability to understand non-human thinking patterns. Every human child learns to read the emotions of dogs, cats, birds, even insects, Alex said. We learn that different animals are intelligent in different ways, and that you have to approach each species according to how their minds work. Maybe that's why I could understand what your security systems were trying to do. I've been practicing on non-human intelligence my whole life. General Corax's mechanical voice carried a note of skepticism. You claim this ability is common among your species? Alex shrugged. Ask any human farmer about the personality differences between individual cows. Ask any human pet owner about what their dog is thinking. Ask any human parent about reading the emotions of a baby who can't talk yet. We're not telepathic, but we're really good at figuring out what other beings need, even when they can't tell us directly. The assembly erupted in multiple conversations as representatives began discussing this new perspective. Alex could hear fragments of debate in languages his translator couldn't handle, but the tone seemed less hostile than it had been earlier. Delegate Prime called for order. "Human Alex, do you have a specific proposal for this assembly?" Alex took a deep breath. He hadn't expected to be asked for solutions, but he had been thinking about this problem for days. Yes. Instead of trying to keep humans away from galactic security systems, create a new type of security specialist. Pair human intuitive analysts with logical system designers from other species. The logical minds create systems that are mathematically sound, and the intuitive minds test them against approaches that don't follow mathematical rules. A collaboration, mused Ambassador Vorth. More than that, Alex continued, getting excited about the idea. A new way of thinking about security, entirely. Instead of building walls that keep certain types of thinking out, build systems that can recognize and adapt to different types of intelligence. Make security that gets stronger when it encounters new approaches, instead of weaker. Dr. Kale was cycling through colors rapidly. Adaptive security systems that learn from attack attempts rather than simply resisting them. The mathematical possibilities are extraordinary. And the practical applications, added Counselor Vex, could revolutionize not just security, but communication, trade negotiations, scientific research, any field where different species need to work together effectively. General Corax was quiet for a long moment before speaking. This would require unprecedented cooperation between species with very different approaches to problem solving. Yes, Alex agreed. It would. But isn't that better than having a galaxy where every species has to worry about whether their security systems are vulnerable to human intuition, or where humans have to worry about being seen as a threat to galactic stability? Delegate Prime looked around the assembly hall, taking in the expressions and body language of representatives from dozens of different worlds. "I believe we have the foundation for a productive discussion. Dr. Kale, would the Axiom Collective be willing to participate in a pilot program for this collaborative approach?" "The mathematical elegance alone would be worth the effort," Dr. Kale replied. "And if we can create security systems that are truly resistant to all forms of intelligence, not just the forms we understand, the applications would be limitless." Over the following hours, the assembly worked out the details of what they were calling the Integrated Intelligence Initiative. Humans would be invited to join mixed species teams working on security, communication, and scientific research projects. In exchange, human institutions would open their doors to alien students and researchers who wanted to understand intuitive problem-solving methods. As the session concluded, Alex found himself surrounded by representatives from various governments, all offering him positions, research opportunities, and scholarships. The attention was overwhelming, but also exciting. "So what will you do now?" asked Quinn, who had been watching the proceedings from the student observation area. Alex looked around the assembly hall at the beings from dozens of worlds who were already forming working groups and planning collaborative projects. "I think I'm going to finish my academy training first, but after that, I guess I'm going to help build bridges between different kinds of intelligence." "And if it doesn't work?" Quinn asked. Alex grinned. "Then we'll try something else. That's what humans do. We keep trying new approaches until something works." 6 months later, Alex graduated from the Galactic Security Academy with highest honors, despite still having some of the lowest test scores in the institution's history. His thesis project, Intuitive Vulnerability Assessment in Logical Security Systems, became required reading for security students throughout the galaxy. His consulting firm, Chaos Security Solutions, operated out of a small office on Station Omega 7, with the motto, "If you can't break it, we can't fix it." The business model was simple. Logical minds designed the security, intuitive minds tried to break it, and then they worked together to fix whatever problems they found. The firm's first major client was the Axiom Collective, who hired Alex to test their new adaptive banking security system. His second client was the Zentari Empire, who wanted him to evaluate their diplomatic communication protocols. His third client was the Earth colonial government, who needed someone to explain why alien-designed security systems kept confusing human colonists. The galaxy, it turned out, had been waiting for someone who could translate between different types of intelligence. Alex just happened to be human enough to hear what the machines were trying to say, and smart enough to explain it in ways that other species could understand. And every morning, when he unlocked his office door with a simple mechanical key that had no quantum encryption, no biometric scanning, and no mathematical complexity whatsoever, Alex smiled and remembered that sometimes the most sophisticated problems had surprisingly simple solutions. You just had to be willing to listen to what they were really asking for.